Hello, it's Dawn Michelle from Boho Tarot, and today I thought instead of pairing tarot and oracle decks as I normally do, we are going to pair my tarot decks with some of my favorite fiction reads. So we're going to take a look at a couple of my favorite books, and I'm going to share with you some of the tarot decks that I feel embody or tap into the energy that we find within these books. So I thought this just would be a fun exploration of combining two of the things that I love the most, tarot and reading. So let's go ahead and dive into these beautiful stories. So the first pairing is going to be the book and deck that actually kicked off this whole idea for me, and that is the Night Circus by Erin Morgenstern, and I have the Cirque du Tarot here. So this was the pairing that really sparked this whole idea because I happened to be reading the Night Circus, was working with the Cirque du Tarot at the same time, and it just kind of felt like there was a lot of synchronicities between the deck and the book. Now I do want to note that there is a tarot deck called the Phantom Wise Tarot, which is coming out this fall, that is created by this book's author, and I am super excited about it. It's definitely one that's going to be top on my purchase list this fall. So let me just share with you a little bit about each of these books that we are going to be talking about today, and then I'm going to read you a couple of paragraphs from the first few pages of each of these books as we flip through the deck that I feel embodies that energy. The circus arrives without warning, and it is only open at night. But behind the scenes, there's a fierce competition that is underway, a duel between two young magicians, Celia and Marco, who have been trained since childhood expressly for this purpose by their mercurial instructors. The Night Circus by Erin Morgenstern. Anticipation. The circus arrives without warning. No announcements preceded, no paper notices on downtown posts and billboards, no mention or advertisements in local newspapers. It is simply there when yesterday it was not. The towering tents are striped in white and black, no golds and crimsons to be seen, no color at all save for the neighboring trees and the grass of the surrounding fields. Black and white stripes on gray sky, countless tents of varying shapes and sizes, with an elaborate wrought iron fence encasing them in a colorless world. Even what little ground is visible from outside is black or white, painted or powdered or treated with some other circus trick. But it is not open for business, not just yet. Within hours, everyone in town has heard about it. By afternoon, the news has spread several towns over. Word of mouth is a more effective method of advertisement than typeset words and exclamation points on paper pamphlets or posters. It is impressive and unusual news, the sudden appearance of a mysterious circus. People marvel at the staggering height of the tallest tents. They stare at the clock that sits just inside the gate that no one can properly describe, and the black sign painted in white letters that hangs upon the gate, the one that reads, "Opens at nightfall, closes at dawn." Now, this deck, I'll be perfectly honest, is probably just my pairing for this book until the deck by the actual author comes out, because then I feel like that's just going to be the perfect match. But I do love the mystical, magical world that we get within the Cirque du Tarot that I feel like we see in the Night Circus as well. One of the things that I do like about the Cirque du Tarot is that there is a lot of other things going on beyond that main focal point on the deck. And so when you look kind of deeper into the shadows of these cards, you can see more things coming to the surface. And I feel like that's very much the same with the Night Circus. The main focus is of these characters kind of coming into their own as magicians, which I feel like this deck actually represents pretty well, because we have kind of two central figures within this deck. We have the Fool and the High Priestess being the ringmaster. Both show up in multiple cards in this deck, so you can kind of follow their progression, their transition throughout the deck, and see where they are kind of peeking their head into the cards, similar as we see the characters in the Night Circus do within their circus, where they are creating and working on these elaborate experiences within the circus as a way to kind of flex their magical muscles and to work towards this competition that they're working on. So I feel like this deck really does kind of capture that energy really well, that all of the things going on beneath the surface, what's going on behind the curtain, what's going on just off of center stage. And I feel like that does represent the energy of the Night Circus story pretty well. So it's definitely the deck that I right now would pair most with the Night Circus, just because of that energy. But we shall see when the Phantom-wise Tarot, the actual tarot deck by the writer of this book, comes out. So that is the tarot deck that I chose for the Night Circus, and that is the Cirque de Tarot. So the next pairing, which also has a bit of magic and mystery and wonder to it, is the Queen of Hearts by Colleen Oakes, and I have paired that with the Dame Darcy Queen Alice Tarot. So it says, only queens with hearts can bleed. This is not a story of the wonderland we know. Alice has not fallen down a rabbit hole. This is a wonderland where beneath each smile lies a secret. Each heart comes with a demand, and only prisoners tell the truth. So this book is also part of a 3-book series, and I do want to note that it is a young adult story. Queen of Hearts by Colleen Oakes. Oh, my future queen, you're late. Harris hopped from one foot to the other, his plump face soaked with a cold sweat. He pulled off his thick-rimmed glasses and wiped them on his white-checkered ascot. Dinah, walk faster, Your Highness. We're late, late, late. He looked down at his pocket watch with an exaggerated sigh. Dinah, Princess of Wonderland and future Queen of Hearts, rolled her eyes. Harris, I'm walking as swiftly as I can. With all due respect, my dear, we have a very important summons from the King of Hearts. Your father wishes to see you. You know he's not a patient man. Dinah continued to shuffle down the hallway of the Golden Birds, feeling quite like one of the ridiculous bronze fowls perched on the golden pedestals that surrounded her. A little bird ran across her path, and Dinah stomped near its feet, sending it shrieking into the air. My child, thundered Harris, control your emotions. I beg of you, do not let your father see that behavior, or you will be sleeping in the Black Tower. I doubt it, snipped Dinah grumpily. I wish that would happen because then I would get to see inside them. Harris gave Dinah a disappointed look. Never wish yourself inside the Black Towers, he said gravely. You have no idea what evil lurks there. So the deck I chose for the Queen of Hearts is, of course, the Dame Darcy Queen Alice Tarot. One of the things that I love about this deck is that we see Alice, even though we're talking about the Queen of Hearts in this particular book, but we see Alice at various ages. So sometimes she looks a bit more like a grown-up, more in her, more as an adult. And then at other times we see her and she looks more childlike, as we see here in the Seven of Swords. So not only is it kind of that Wonderland-esque energy of the Queen Alice Tarot, we're also getting that kind of sense of watching the character grow up within this deck, which is very much how the story of the Queen of Hearts, particularly if you read the series, and it's a 3-book series, if you read all 3 of them, you can definitely watch this character go from kind of impetuous teen to a fully realized queen, which is quite wonderful. And I feel like we get a little bit of that sense with the Dame Darcy Queen Alice Tarot as well. And of course we have all the wonderful magical wonderland things that we see in this deck that we also see in the story. We have all of the magical places and all of the magical beings. They definitely have an interesting take in Colleen's book. It doesn't quite align, as she said on the back of the book. This is not the Wonderland you know. It's definitely a different kind of energy of Wonderland, but of all the decks that I have, I do feel like this one, with its Wonderland vibe, as well as that whole progression of seeing Alice grow up within these cards, I think really fits the vibe of the Queen of Hearts book. Again, if you enjoy that kind of a story, this is just the first of 3 books, and I do recommend all of them. So again, the deck that I paired with the Queen of Hearts is the Dame Darcy Queen Alice Tarot. So continuing on with our sense of wonder, we have Watership Down by Richard Adams. Set in England's Downs, a once idyllic rural landscape, this stirring tale of adventure, courage, and survival follows a band of very special creatures on their flight from the intrusion of man and the certain destruction of their home. Watership Down by Richard Adams. The primroses were over. Toward the edge of the wood, where the ground became open and sloped down to an old fence and a brambly ditch beyond, Only a few fading patches of pale yellow still showed among the dog's mercury and oak tree roots. On the other side of the fence, the upper part of the field was full of rabbit holes. In places, the grass was gone altogether, and everywhere there were clusters of dry droppings through which nothing but the ragwort would grow. 100 yards away, at the bottom of the slope, ran the brook, no more than 3 feet wide, half choked with kingcups, watercress, and blue brook lime. The cart track crossed by the brick culvert and climbed the opposite slope to a 5-barred gate in the thorn hedge. The gate led into the lane. The May sunset was red in clouds, and there was still half an hour to twilight. The dry slope was dotted with rabbits. So the deck I chose to pair with Watership Down is, of course, the Oak, Ash, and Thorn, because I feel like this deck really inhabits the world of the creature, whereas in other decks we have animals, but we also have people, and we have animals existing in people's spaces, whereas this is very much a deck of animals existing in their own space, and that is very much the heart of the story of Watership Down. There are humans in it, but the majority of the time the humans are the disruptive energy, the disruptive force within the book. And I feel like this deck really focuses on the beautiful journey of these animals, particularly because we do follow some core animals through each of the suits. You know, we have the hares, the rabbits, and the pentacles, which is beautiful. Again, that really ties back into the Watership Down energy because it is a story about rabbits. And it's a beautifully written story. And I feel like the sword suit really encapsulates some of the dangers that the rabbits come across along their journeys, as well as, you know, some of the energies that we see in the wands with the foxes. And I just feel like it's a beautiful representation of animals in their own world. It is a little bit storybook, but then this is a little bit storybook as well. And so I didn't want an animal deck that felt too realistic, you know, not like the Brady Tarot, because I do feel like, you know, we are stepping into this almost kind of magical storybook world within Watership Down, because we are listening to conversations between, you know, little rabbits and birds and mice and other beings. And I feel like this deck, with its more realistic depiction of animals within their own environment, but also with that storybook energy or lens to it, I felt like just really embodied the energy of Watership Down beautifully. So that was the tarot deck that I chose to pair with Watership Down, the Oak, Ash, and Thorn. Now let's venture into the deeper, darker world of A Pocket Full of Crows by Joanne M. Harris, and I have paired this one with the Hush Tarot. So the back is very simple. It says, "Love made her a prisoner, revenge will set her free, a modern fairy tale of love, loss, and revenge. This is a perfect modern classic." A Pocket Full of Crows by Joanne M. Harris. The year it turns and turns and turns. Winter to summer, darkness to light, turning the world like wood on a lathe, shaping the months and the seasons. Tonight is May Eve, and the moon is full for the second time this month. May Eve and a blue milk moon. Time for a witch to go traveling. Tonight I am a vixen. I could have been an owl, or a hare, or a lark, or a wolf, or an otter. The traveling folk can take many guise, but tonight, this special night, when wildfires burn and witches fly, tonight I am a vixen. I leave my clothes by the fireside, the feather skirt, the wolfskin cloak, the necklace of polished stones. Naked, I turn in the firelight, moon silver, fire golden. And now I can hear the sounds of the night, the lapping at the water's edge, the squeak of the mouse in the long grass, the calling of the owl in the branches. I can hear the tick-tick-ticking of a death watch beetle in a beam over half a mile away. So the deck I chose to pair with the Pocket Full of Crows is the Hush Tarot. And that is because A Pocket Full of Crows is very much kind of like a dark fairy tale. And there is a lot of magic and mystery and darkness to that particular story. There's a little bit of that shapeshiftery fae energy, a lot of magic, And I just feel like the Hush Tarot kind of represents that energy beautifully. I often say this is a deck of like death and decay and rebirth, which is all wonderful and definitely aspects that we see in most fairy tales. But this deck also has a bit of a trickstery fae energy. It also has a bit of a seasonal feel to it, as we can kind of get the sense of the change of the seasons, the way things bloom and decay and die. And I think all of that really ties into the story of A Pocket Full of Crows really well. I did have half a thought to grab the Crow Tarot, but that deck energetically doesn't really fit the story of A Pocket Full of Crows. The only correlation there would be the actual crows, but there are crows in this deck as well. And I feel like this Empress really embodies the Pocket Full of Crows really well. It's a dark fairy tale. It's definitely not for children. Again, it does have elements of romance to it, but it's by no means a romance story. It is more of a dark fairy tale, and I feel like the Hush Tarot really embodies that dark fae energy really well. And by dark, I don't necessarily mean negative or bad, but just that shadowy, unseen, unrealized, uninhibited energy of that fae world, that magic realm, that mystery space. That was the deck that I chose to pair with A Pocket Full of Crows, the Hush Tarot. So the next book takes us into even more depth and darkness with The Signature of All Things by Elizabeth Gilbert. Born in 1800, the daughter of a charismatic botanical explorer, Alma quickly comes into her own within a world of plants and science. But as her research takes her deeper into the mysteries of evolution, she falls in love with a man who draws her in the opposite direction, into the realm of the spiritual, the divine, and the magical. The Signature of All Things by Elizabeth Gilbert. For the first 5 years of her life, Alma Whitaker was indeed a mere passenger in the world, as we are all passengers in such early youth, and so her story was not yet noble, nor was it particularly interesting, beyond the fact that this homely toddler passed her days without illness or incident, surrounded by a degree of wealth nearly unknown in the America of that time, even within elegant Philadelphia. How her father came to be in possession of such great wealth is a story worth telling here, while we wait for a girl to grow up and catch our interest again. I chose the Forest of Enchantment to represent this particular book because although the book does primarily focus on more of that sort of scientific world that our main character is involved in, there is definitely a sense of wonder and mystery and almost magic to a lot of the goings on within the story. There's also a lot of mystery and deception. And I think that energy is actually represented really well in the Forest of Enchantment. This is not a deck that I consider an easy reader in terms of it's not a hug deck. And when I first purchased this deck, that's kind of what I thought it was going to be. And I found it to be the exact opposite. This deck is wonderful for getting beneath the surface of things, for diving deep into those dark and shadowy places and pulling out the wisdom from within. And I feel like in that sense, kind of the energy of the deck, the fact that it is very much foresty and botanical, definitely lends itself well to the really earthy energy of the Signature of All Things. So it's really about the mysteries that we find in the shadows that this deck embodies, that I feel like really relates to the story of the Signature of All Things. So that is my deck pairing for the Signature of All Things, the Forest of Enchantment Tarot. And finally, we are diving into the world of tarot and mystery with The Fortune Teller by Gwendolyn Womack. And the deck I have chosen to pair with this one is the Golden Tarot, the Visconti Forza deck by Mary Packard. Samel Kavnow appraises antiquities for an exclusive Manhattan auction house, deciphering ancient texts, and when she discovers a manuscript written in the time of Cleopatra, she knows it will be the find of her career. The Fortune Teller by Gwendolyn Womack. The fireplace stood like a sentry in the room. Embers crackled and popped behind the grate, breaking the silence, and a log fell forward in a rain of sparks. The flames bent and bloomed, spreading out their warmth, but Marcel could feel only coldness. His heart slowed and beat out of time, making each breath more difficult to take. The glass of cognac slipped from his hand and tumbled across the carpet. Unable to call out from his chair in the study, he looked toward the door and gripped his arm. The muscle of his heart closed tightly like a fist and squeezed until his body began to tremor. Panic consumed him as his mind rode the pain to its pinnacle. He needed to tell Theo he had found her. He needed to tell Theo what to do, to warn him the manuscript was no longer safe. So I chose this gigantic Visconti Forza deck by Mary Packard to embody or pair with the Fortune Teller, because I feel like this deck kind of embodies not only that historical energy of the tarot that we see represented in the story, although there's definitely some ties into the Egyptian mythology in it, but it also speaks a lot about manuscripts and old books and auction houses and antiquities. And I feel like this deck, even though it's, a mass market reproduction, kind of embodies that energy. And I think it's a beautiful kind of a representation for the fortune teller. We have a lot of beautiful illustrated quartz and majors, and the minors are gorgeous as well, but the quartz and majors really feel like something that you would find in an illuminated manuscript or in a collection of antiquities. And I just think it's a gorgeous representation for this particular book. So I have chosen to pair the fortune teller with the golden tarot, the Visconti Forza deck. So that was the first selection of pairing my favorite tarot decks with my favorite reads. I definitely hope to do another few books again in the future. In the meantime, I'd love to know if you have some favorite tarot decks that you like to pair or that you think would pair well with some of your favorite reads. So feel free to do a VR or just share with me in the comments below. As always, my friends, you'll find links for everything I have talked about here in the description box of this video. Thank you so much for joining me today, and I look forward to sharing with you again soon.